if you think about that thing that you want to do this week, I want you to imagine that you're speaking it, thinking it into existence. And now I want you to imagine that because you've spoken it, because you have a laser focus on it occurring, I want you to imagine that all of the necessary pieces for it to work, the software, the people, the VA, the knowledge, the coach, the mentor, the processes. I want you to imagine that all of those things, almost like a cosmic, like a black hole, all of those things are just being pulled towards you and slotting into position to be the process that's going to get you where that you want to go. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, right? And one of the very first things that he did was he made light, right? He turned the lights on. He made the stars. And it happened very, very quickly. When he did that, it just happened very, very quickly. He spoke it into existence. Okay? Now, obviously, we're not God, and we can't just speak, and then our thing that we're going to work on all week long is going to magically happen in the next few seconds. But I would argue that when God spoke something into existence, his speaking caused everything in his world, which is all the atoms and the nuclear forces, to come together in such a way that they orchestrated light, that they orchestrated the heavens and the earth. Okay, now the Bible tells us that we are created in God's image. So we're not God. We don't have access to the nuclear forces, right? We can't just speak and the atoms listen to us and obey us. But I want you to imagine that if we're created in his image, that the way that we create can be exactly the same way. The way that we create is to speak, and speaking may be thinking. We speak or we think. I want to have this particular result for this very specific result to happen, okay? I'm not really concerned about the process that's going to happen, but once I've spoken it, that this week I'm going to outline that membership. I'm going to create that membership. This week I'm going to get 3 interviews booked because this is going to be the foundation of my year. This week I am going to plan out my continuity program that's going to allow me to double my business in the next couple of years. This week I'm going to create my first program. This week I'm going to build new relationships. This week I'm going to build a new business. As soon as we make that decision, how does that, in fact, in the back of your mind, are you feeling bigger right now? Type in bigger. If your mentality, even as I'm speaking this to you, if you think about that thing that you want to do this week, I want you to imagine that you're speaking it, you're thinking it, and you're thinking it into existence. You're just speaking and thinking it into existence. And now I want you to imagine that because you've spoken it, because you have a laser focus on it occurring, I want you to imagine that all of the necessary pieces for it to work, the software, the people, the VA, the knowledge, the coach, the mentor, the processes. I want you to imagine that all of those things, almost like a cosmic, like a black hole, all of those things are just being pulled towards you and slotting into position to be the process that's going to get you where that you want to go. How does that picture, I'd like you to type into the chat, how does that picture that I just gave you, how does that feel for you personally? Can you almost feel like you could achieve something bigger this week as a result of just hearing what you've been able to see in your mind's eye? How does that feel? Does it feel bigger? Does it feel like instead of focusing on those pieces, instead of focusing on the process, that by focusing on the end result, those pieces will lay themselves into order? Almost like you'll think of them, and obviously you're going to have to pull the trigger. I mean, you're going to have to buy the piece of software. You know, you're going to have to reach out to 10 people and ask for interviews. Like, you're going to have to do those things. But instead of it being an all-consuming week-long or 2-week-long process, it's a 5-minute process because you just know in your knower that you're going to walk it out. Type walk it out if you can see that. If you can just see the future, and then you can just walk it out instead of focusing on what's right in front of us. Yeah, walk it out. I'm going to pop into the chat here for a second because I love getting the comments and I want to read some of them. You can see it in your mind, Joe. Feels great, Deborah, and it feels real. I like that word feel. If we can feel it, we can make it happen. If all we do is focus on making it happen and we never feel it, then it becomes transactional. And although we get something done right now, we don't walk into the future with it, if that makes sense. So I'm seeing some feels bigger. It feels bigger. Being able to see it without thinking how. Let the how happen on its own. I know that almost feels weird right? Because so many of us, we're logical thinkers. And that's one of the reasons we're able to implement the things that we've implemented in the last 5 to 10 or 15 years is because we're logical thinkers. But if we're not careful, if we stay a logical thinker, then we're never able to make these huge things happen because huge things live outside of the realm of logic, if that makes sense. So it scares you. Linda, cool. I feel good because you're scared. I like that. That's how we do big things, like the first marathon, the first Olympics, the first big game, the first college. Remember going to college the first time? Remember going to kindergarten? You were scared, but you stepped into something bigger. And the thing is, if you're not scared, it may not be big enough.